You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Freight Plus. I'm your host, Kyle McNaught. Thanks for checking us out. It's another SCU30, Supply Chain Under 30, where I talk to young professionals working in the industry sort of about their journey and really try to shed some light on the different career paths and different ways that people join the supply chain. We want to get more and more young people into the supply chain. It's a really fun thing. So this series is all just talking to young people and hopefully sharing it with young people. And today's episode is going to be a fun one because I'm traveling on the West Coast. And we have Jon Schaub, account executive at Joe Hansen Transportation Solutions, services. Ha ha ha. We're gonna talk a little bit about growing up, what drove him. He's got some pretty interesting background. Plus, he's a West Coaster. He's talking to an East Coaster, so it's gonna be a fun time in general. But let me bring him on in. Jon, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Absolutely, my man. I know it's interesting weather for you, even though we're recording this, and I don't know why I went to weather. That's so dumb of me. You could tell I'm a professional podcaster by my ability to date this immediately. So, Jon, for the audience, talk a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and kind of what was school, what was kind of growing up like for you?
Yeah, kind of a quick rundown from the beginning. Born in Sacramento, California, and when I was 5, my dad received a pastor position in Salem, Oregon, and so I'm one of. Also, like to add, I'm one of 5 kids, so 3 older sisters and 1 younger brother. So when I was 5, we moved up to Salem, and dad got a church, and we've been in the Salem area for most of my life. My dad still is with the same church, and but growing up as a pastor's kid, has its challenges, has its pros and cons, but overall, I had a great experience. And my dad's congregation, there was no kind of high pressure or high expectation, and it overall had a great experience as a pastor's kid. I
Oh,
know
I bet
sometimes it's not that case.
the spotlight's got to be on you, right? It's like you can't make one mistake. You're like, oh, my buddy's got to do one thing wrong. But yeah, I gotta imagine it's crazy. What were you like as a student? Like, what'd you study? What interested you? Did you play sports? Like, what was your passions as a kid?
Yeah, growing up, sports were my passion. My role model as a young kid was Brett Favre, and so grew up a big Green Bay Packer fan, big Oregon Duck fan. Being in the Willamette Valley, only about an hour away from Autzen Stadium. Um, Dennis Dixon, Jonathan Stewart, all those guys were kind of my role models growing up. And just to go back to Brett Favre, I wanted to be just like Brett Favre. And so football was a passion from a very young age. And that's kind of what motivated me to get through school, and to get to workouts, and to build up my arm strength, and to build up my accuracy, and build that chemistry with my receivers and teammates. And so yeah, football has been a huge passion of mine. And I was super grateful. Had a pretty good high school career, and was able to continue playing at a small college called Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington. Um, Kind of waited my turn freshman and sophomore year. Got some playing opportunities my junior and senior year. Ended up tearing my ACL, tearing my labrum. Uh, Not an ideal college career, and my body is still paying for it.
Oh yeah.
But um, overall, football was a huge passion. Um, and while I was at Pacific Lutheran, I studied communication, PR, and marketing. And then, similar to you, Kyle, my minor was in nonprofit. Um, I don't know if your minor was in nonprofit, but I know you've dabbled in kind of the nonprofit sector. And so that was kind of my education through PLU, and still didn't know what I wanted to do. Growing up, there was a little bit of the expectation of you follow in your father's footsteps to becoming a pastor. Um, and I being 26 now, I don't really see myself being a pastor. I see myself being involved in churches, and with COVID, it's hard to be involved in a church now. But um, I finished school and ended up getting a job with a fundraising company called Snap Raise. And nothing bad to say about Snap. It was a great experience. I helped nonprofit groups and teams raise money instead of having to sell candy bars, which we all remember doing back in the day. Um, Nowadays, everybody has a cell phone, and it's more of a tech-driven approach to fundraising for mainly high school and small college programs. And but yeah, that was a great experience. And um,
That's interesting.
eh,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I'll give you a heads up. As someone who's also torn his ACL, get excited. You're about to have knee surgery in your 30s. You're going to be walking with a limp. I just give you some heads up. It's not great. I don't have an ACL, I was told the other day. Like I had to get knee surgery to scope out some stuff, and then like I saw it went for my follow up, and they're like, "So you were kind of drugged up, but do you remember what the doctor told you?" I'm like, "No." They're like, you don't have an ACL. Your
oh
arthritis is
yeah.
serving as an ACL right now. So get it pumped for that stuff.
Oh my, Kyle, you've really brought joy to me on this
Oh yeah, yeah. I
rainy
gotta, I
day
gotta
here.
hit you with the. I'm hitting this. Is what I do with the SCU. I'm like, kids, get ready. Sitting hurts. All the body, all those issues you had to come back to bite you in the butt.
No,
Uh,
you can see I'm standing right
yeah.
now. I know my body doesn't function well sitting, for 8, 9 hours a day. So I've got to be up and moving and keep the blood flowing. It's better
Oh,
for my knee and my shoulder.
I mean, oh, geez, yeah, you're really bad. You're really messed up, dude. Um,
Yeah,
so sorry to take it down that road.
yeah,
But
it's all
yeah,
right.
it's funny. I mean, I actually my minor was, believe it or not, my minor was classics. Like doing like Greek and Roman, just because like I have no idea. This is the whole point of a communications degree. It's pointless. Never waste money on the thing because you're like, I can already talk. Why do I need a communications degree? It's all experience. One thing that you did do a little bit, or I think I remember, was a lot of like internships, and you also did some recruiting stuff. Talk to me a little bit about that before we kind of dive into how did you get into the supply chain.
Yeah, yeah. When I was at PLU, I helped kind of the recruiting side. Being a small college in Tacoma, uh, the program itself, the football program itself, had 50 years of rich tradition, national championships, developing solid men, and really helping them leapfrog into adulthood. And so it was kind of my job. I helped. New recruits, new high school students. I toured them around campus. I was one of kind of the voices that helped sell PLU and the football program from my perspective, playing quarterback, being at the time I was a sophomore and junior and senior, so I'd been around the block, so I knew what I was talking about, and my journey overall was really beneficial, and super grateful for that experience. And that's what I tried to sell to these high school student athletes is, come join our program, and your life will be changed forever. And I'm a living testament to that. So I'm super grateful for that experience, and being able to help, kind of sell PLU and that football program. And
And
um,
somehow blended into what your future held, huh? Same thing. You learn how to sell and kind of be that voice.
yes, yes. And I had a couple internships. A marketing internship with the residential life department at PLU, and then right so after I graduated, I had shoulder surgery, and in that time I needed to do something, and so I was a marketing intern for my dad's church for a couple of months. I was able to do that just kind of part-time. I could come in whenever, I could do it with one arm. Um, so and then I leaped into the fundraising gig. So yeah.
So talk to me through how did we get from fundraising? So you kind of graduate, and like any marketing and communications major, you have no idea what you're going to do because that's how it is with us.
Yes.
How did you get into? You got into the fundraising, but then what was kind of the plan? How did you end up getting into logistics? How did you get here?
Yeah, I had a couple friends. Our office is here in South Salem, and I had a couple of high school buddies working for Johansson Transportation Service, and they loved it. They loved the company. They loved the values. They loved the day to day. They loved the office environment and culture. Um, and at the time, I was loyal, dedicated to the fundraising gig. But a couple of conversations happened with my friends and kind of some executives over at Johansson. Um, Ended up having a couple conversations with um, Mr. Johansson, and ended up bringing me on board. And that was almost 2 years ago. And the rest is history. I'm super grateful that I'm here and super passionate about what I'm doing and the company I'm a part of. It's something I'm super proud of, and uh, there's definitely a lot to be excited about here in the future as well.
So what interests you? Like, was it supply chain or was it more kind of Johansson and kind of like talking to the people? Like, were you kind of getting psyched? Because like, I'll just give my background. When I first joined, went from the nonprofit, sort of same journey, right? Went from a nonprofit into logistics, and when I went into freight, I'm like, oh, this shouldn't be that hard. I understand freight. This should be like I'd see trucks on the road all the time, and then like
Yep.
entered. I'm like, what the heck just happened? But it was the same. I kind of was sold on the people. Like, was it that for you, or kind of what kind of interested you?
I think the biggest, I was the same, same thinking, oh, I've got buddies that work for a logistics company. Like,
I'm
oh,
smarter than
trucks.
them, right? I can handle
No,
this.
I didn't say that.
Joe, yeah, Kyle said that. Come to the East Coast if you want to bowl up on me. Messing with you.
But I looked at the challenge and the opportunity for financial growth, upward mobility, and just an opportunity to build kind of a sales team within my specific division. And um, as you said, you step into it and you realize, okay, there's some elementary levels to this, but then there's also some like PhD levels to this, and I've got a lot to learn.
Oh yeah,
And so that was, yeah,
oh yeah, no, that's always the interesting thing. You enter this, and you're like, wow, it's a lot more complicated. I mean, and like for the two of us, right? College wasn't really, we never got some exposure to it. Like I've talked to some people who've gotten to in college. Yeah, I got to have like a small exposure to the supply chain. I was doing business degree and stuff like that. But it was interesting to me to always hear that. So what exactly? I mean, we don't have to get into too. You don't have to say all your clients or anything like that. But talk a little bit about kind of what you do, kind of the layman's terms, so people can kind of understand, especially kids who are more in that. I mean, the big thing, like you said, is there's upward mobility, there's financial mobility, there's the ability to make money, right? Talk a little bit about what you're kind of doing and explain it in a way that, like, someone in college, like, this is something you possibly could pursue.
yeah. As an account executive, I'm really just a brand ambassador for JTS, and my job is to connect with other businesses that have freight, and that's very vast. And so over time, we've kind of sharpened that scope. But really, my job is to connect with logistics managers, shipping managers, traffic managers, any company that has freight and needs it to go from A to B. That's my target, and that's who I'm pursuing. Pre-COVID, I was traveling quite a bit. I was on the road once or twice a week. I was hopping on an airplane at least once a month. We have offices in California and Texas and Florida, so I build kind of sales calls around those offices as well. So I spent time in California, spent a couple times in Florida, which was great. Our office is in Orlando, so and there's also plenty of conferences in Orlando as well. So again, that was pre-COVID, and I love being with people. I love communicating, connecting with people, learning about their history, their work experience, their struggles, their needs. And then COVID hit, and then corporate travel was frowned upon, unfortunately. And so it became a little bit more of an inside sales role, which is um, it is a little bit harder. For me, I know other people really enjoy the inside sales, the smiling and dialing side of freight sales. I don't not enjoy it. It's harder for me personally, and so I'm looking forward to when corporate travel is a little bit more acceptable, um,
Well, of
and
course,
just
you're a
getting
young guy. You want to get around, see the like. That was like when I got out. Like it was fun. Like the best part was traveling, kind of getting to go out there, expose yourself to different cities, and get to
yep.
go places. You're like, there would be no reason I'd be in Orlando, right? You're like, well, let's go. Like, well, I'm going to Orlando, I guess, when I have kids and they bug me about Disney World. But otherwise,
Yep.
like, I'm not gonna be able to see Orlando. I'm gonna be in Kissimmee, more or less. But yeah, that's gonna be fun. What about the kind of as you, yeah, the inside sales. We all know inside sales, right?
Yes.
What interests you? I mean, with in terms of supply chain, and like you kind of were hinting at it, so I just sort of interrupted you. So bad me again, being professional podcaster. But what excites you? I mean, what's interesting kind of for you, especially kind of learning some stuff, knowing that like maybe the task is a little repetitive, not as fun as traveling, but like, what about the information? What excites you about working in supply chain and kind of in logistics?
Yeah, it's fun and it's frustrating. I'll start with that. It's super challenging, and every day is kind of a new day, which I really appreciate. So there are some redundant elements to being in freight sales, but there's also some layers to it that mix it up. Talking to new businesses that have different commodities in different areas, different regions, and then seasonality plays a huge role. The holidays play a huge role, and so it's this ever changing kind of cycle. And so every day feels like a new day, and so that I wake up motivated and excited and enthusiastic to help. Right now with COVID and the storms, uh, there's a lot of freight issues out there, and my job is to solve those, be the solution for those freight issues. And so that just kind of overall challenge of, it is fun and it is exciting. At the same time, you've got to take a lot of punches, especially being, in your first 2 years of freight sales, you're especially taking more and more punches. So being able to just kind of fight the pros and cons, the ebbs and flows, that's what motivates me and gets me up in the morning to just keep attacking, keep looking for more opportunities.
Yeah, score 0-0, right? Every day
Yeah,
score 0-0. A little football for you.
there it
Uh,
is.
how about so I think one thing that's interesting, right? And like I'm still formulating this in my head, but the idea that like supply chain is one of those weird. It gets to fit in that kind of nonprofit, right? What you're doing moves the nation. It kind of keeps the world kind of running, helps us kind of be who we are because you're working the supply chain. You're helping things move. I mean, COVID taught us anything. It's that the supply chain's so valuable.
Yeah.
Uh, and then but at the same time, you're not a doctor, right? The patient's not going to die on you. So how do you see that as kind of a value working in the supply chain, especially with your nonprofit background? Do you kind of like, oh, I still get to have this kind of ability to do social good in a sense?
Yeah, yeah. I'll start off by saying how grateful I am to be a part of an essential industry, and a majority of our customers are food and beverage based commodities, and a lot of those customers have continued, their freight has continued to flow, and so helping put food on tables is really something that excites me and brings joy and kind of lifts me up, and gets me through kind of the punches. Is we are essential, we are needed, solution providers, and so that element of it I do enjoy. So there is that kind of personal aspect of you're helping get food, beverage, and other essential commodities, to their destinations, to their customers. That's definitely something that's motivating for me.
Yeah, and you talk about like taking the punches. What type of, I mean, let's start to transition over into advice, right? Let's talk. I mean, you're the recruiter, you're the first one on staff that they're talking to. What type of characteristics do you need to have to kind of do your role as an account executive at Johansson?
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind was drive. you you can't shift in neutral and expect to be successful. You can't expect to make any changes or to gain much new business. It takes drive. It takes motivation. It takes discipline, and just a continued education, as that transitions into that drive. And there's so many tools and resources that really help elevate you educationally, that will then help you become a better account executive. And so, podcasts and platforms like Consulting Logistics, Put That Coffee Down, Freight 360, but then also individuals like Chris Jolly and, Dennis Brown, Joe Lynch. There's a lot of wise podcasters, a lot of wise logistics consultants that are vulnerable and share their insight and their experience. And so I attach onto that as much as possible, and I try to soak that in as much as possible. So drive and that continued education, and the other kind of two things is being in freight sales is persistence and patience. It's a marathon. It is not a sprint. Um, and so a lot of these shipping managers are getting bombarded by us freight jockeys on a daily basis. And so especially in an era of COVID, it's a little bit harder to develop a personal touch and that relationship. And so continuing to be persistent, continuing to be patient, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you're going to just continue taking the punches, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Those are kind of the key characteristics that I've found that have helped me be successful kind of in my first 2 years with JTS.
It's interesting. I mean, especially the content that's out there as kind of someone newer to the industry, it's probably something you're flocking to. I mean, what are you reading? Kind of what's your kind of go-to podcast? You don't have to mention consulting logistics. I know that half of this is just me playing the dumbest person in the room. But what are you reading? Kind of what did you find helpful when you first started?
Freight Waves was a huge tool. Dennis Brown was another huge tool, especially at the beginning, as I was kind of there is a lot of material out there now, just trying to fine tune, because everything we had, time is equal with everybody, and time is yet so important, especially in this industry. Like, how am I going to spend my time? How much time am I going to spend on my individual development? So Freight Waves and Dennis Brown were kind of my initial kind of launch points, launch pads. But Freight 360 is something I listen to on a weekly basis, and it also makes it hard not being on the road. You don't have as much time to listen to podcasts, um, and there's a lot of fires to be put out, especially with the logistics industry right now. So um, but yeah, just continuing that education. There is a lot of great resources, but yeah, Freight 360, Freight Waves, Dennis Brown, Chris Jolly. A lot of those I get doses on a daily basis. Just kind of quick refreshers, quick 1 point, 2 points that just continues to kind of sharpen my sword. My goal is to be the best, and those guys, those resources are going to help me get to that point. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. Knowing that kind of you're in it, right? If you were able to kind of do it all over again, what would you do differently? Path like education wise, path wise. What's something that you feel like, oh man, I kind of wish I got to spend a little bit more time trying or learning about this. That would have helped me in this career.
yeah, it having a nonprofit minor, a kind of a business minor, there wasn't. I don't remember much of the supply chain and logistics side of courses and education, and it's really undervalued with higher education, but also at the high school level. And so I wish there was more opportunities for us to dive into that and to see kind of how essential it is. So I think more logistics and supply chain courses at an early level would have really benefited me. But overall, there's not much I would change. I'm grateful for the journey that I've took and the journey that I'm on, and the road ahead. I'm looking forward to that. I don't really have many regrets. I'm grateful for the education that I have. But yeah, some additional logistics courses would have been nice.
Yeah, it's like, man, it would have been nice not to have to work and learn, right? It's one of those
Yes,
just want like I like the path I took and all that stuff.
yes,
All right, final question, man. You're recruiting, right? Pitch it. Tell the recruit why they need to work in the supply chain.
yeah. Every day's a new day. It's a fun challenge. Not every job, is sunshine and rainbows, and I think it's a good reminder that not everything is going to go your way, especially in this industry. But what's great is you are essential. No matter what kind of happens in the world, you're essential. You're needed. You're required, and so that's a huge selling point. And it's fun. Find a team, find a culture, find a group of coworkers that you belong, that you fit with, and a company that you can really get back behind. And there's so much potential in this industry, there's really an uncapped potential in this industry. If financial goals are one of your main focuses, and a lot of people, in the high school, college level, are looking for the six-figure paycheck. Money is a really good element to logistics sales. You have to work very hard to get to that point, but if you stick your head down, you will be rewarded for that work. You will see fruit of your labor. So definitely an industry that I suggest. Freight sales is something I really enjoy every day, and I'm excited for the journey ahead. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, and unlike marketing, it's not just years of experience so you actually start making money. Like you actually can make money if it's based off of you, right? That's the nice thing.
Yeah.
Dude, man, I can't thank you enough. I know, like finding like your West Coast time, finding time to make this connection work is always amazing to me. So, Jon, for those listening and they want to get in touch and maybe they have some additional questions, how can they best reach you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be great. Jon Schaub. They can connect with me there, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure that in the show notes, everything's linked there so they can see you, they can connect with you. But Jon, man, thanks so much for joining me today.
Awesome, Kyle. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for joining. That's all that matters to me. Have a good day.
Yes. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. And that's our show. Are you a supply chain professional under the age of 30 and want to come on and talk about your journey? Let me know in the comments section. In the meantime, subscribe to our show. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Rock and roll.